Real people, real road stories. Every episode is inspired by true events.
I checked into the hotel just after sunset, one of those cheap, beige places built near airports, the kind with thin carpets, humming lights, and windows that never quite close all the way. I wasn't supposed to spend the night there. My flight had been delayed, rebooked, delayed again. And by the time I'd given up, I just wanted a bed and silence. I got the bed, but not the silence. The hotel was almost empty. The woman at reception had handed me my key with a tired smile and said, "Third floor, quiet side." She was wrong about at least one of those things. My room was 312. Next to mine was 311, door slightly scratched, handle loose, as if someone had forced it before. But I didn't think much of it, not then. I took a shower, changed into an old t-shirt, and lay down. The AC rattled above me, steady, mechanical, comforting in a strange way. I was drifting, eyelids heavy, thoughts softening. And then I heard it, a thud. Not loud, not violent, more like someone dropping their bag. I ignored it. Hotels are noisy, walls are thin. People come and go. Then another sound, this time sharper. Like a chair being dragged. Then, a voice, low and clear. Not angry, not scared, just strained. I sat up. Listened. The voice faded, but the feeling it left, that cold, crawling alertness, stayed. I told myself it was nothing. Someone arriving late, someone tired. Someone living a life that had nothing to do with me. But around 1:40 a.m., the sounds changed. A muffled argument, or maybe a desperate conversation. Two voices now, one steady, one trembling. I turned off the AC to hear better. Immediately, the atmosphere shifted. The silence wasn't calm anymore. It was thick, like the air before a storm. I pressed my ear to the wall. Not proud of it, but something in that tone, that tension, made it impossible to look away. The trembling voice said something I couldn't fully understand, except for one word, please. Then came the unmistakable sound of a suitcase zipper ripping open, followed by another thud. Stronger this time. And then absolute, complete silence, not even breathing. I stepped back from the wall, heart knocking hard against my ribs. The silence lasted so long that it became its own kind of noise, a buzzing, a pressure, a warning. Eventually I lay back down, though sleep felt impossible. But sometime after 3 a.m., exhaustion dragged me under. When I woke up, sunlight was leaking through the curtain. It was quiet again, normal quiet, hotel morning quiet. I opened the door to grab breakfast downstairs, and that's when I saw it. A single black suitcase standing upright in front of room 311. No tag, no owner, no sound inside, just waiting. And the door of 311, wide open, lights off. Room empty. I froze, looked down the hallway. No cleaners, no guests. No footsteps, only that suitcase. And whatever had happened behind that wall just a few hours before. I approached the doorway of room 311 slowly, not because I wanted to, but because the silence around it felt wrong. Hotels at that hour usually have a kind of soft morning chaos. Doors clicking, suitcases rolling, cleaning carts rattling. But the third floor felt abandoned, like everyone else had checked out overnight. The suitcase was perfectly positioned, as if someone had placed it there deliberately for someone else to find. Its handle was extended, the wheels still wet, from rain. From the pavement outside, I couldn't tell. I leaned in, just enough to see inside the room. The curtains were half drawn, a lamp on the desk was knocked over, its shade dented. The blankets on the bed were twisted into tight spirals. Not thrown, pulled, like someone had been gripping them. One pillow was on the floor. The desk chair lay sideways, as if someone had stood up too quickly. But the strangest part was this. There was no luggage inside, no toothbrush, no clothes, no phone charger, not even an open water bottle. It was like whoever stayed there either arrived with nothing, or left with everything. Except that single black suitcase. A cold ripple went down my spine. Because the suitcase wasn't just near the door, it was blocking it. Like something, or someone, needed to stay in that room. I stepped back without fully realizing it. My shoulder hitting the wall of my own door. I wanted to go downstairs, tell someone. But the hallway felt like it didn't want me to move. Like air gets in a tunnel, still and heavy. Finally, I forced myself to walk to the elevator. The doors opened instantly, as if someone had just used it seconds before. Downstairs, the lobby was dim and nearly empty. The woman from last night wasn't there. Instead, a young man in a wrinkled shirt and tired eyes typed something at the computer. Room 311, I said, trying to sound casual. There's a suitcase out there. And the door's open. He barely looked up. Already checked out, he said. Early morning departure. My skin prickled. No, I said carefully. There's still a bag there. This got his attention. He turned his screen toward himself, frowning. No record of luggage left behind, he muttered. I opened my mouth to respond. And that's when the elevator behind me dinged. The sound was sharp, metallic, echoing through the empty lobby. The doors slid open. The suitcase was inside the elevator. Standing upright, facing outward. As if waiting for me, the receptionist stared, confused. Did you bring that down? I shook my head slowly. No. He walked toward it reluctantly, like someone approaching an animal they weren't sure was friendly. He touched the handle, hesitating first, then leaned it toward him. Something about the way the suitcase moved was wrong, too light. As if it didn't contain anything that should weigh something down. Probably someone forgot it, he said, though his voice betrayed the fact he didn't believe that. We'll hold it until the owner calls. He wheeled it behind the counter. I watched him open the luggage room door. But before he closed it, he paused, looked inside the suitcase again. His brows knitted with something between confusion and unease. Strange, he murmured, completely empty. He shut the door, locked it, returned to the desk. I asked him what time the guests from 311 had checked out. He typed, squinted, typed again, then looked up at me, face pale. There's no checkout, he said quietly. No one stayed in room 311 last night. I didn't say a word. I didn't have one. He kept scrolling the screen like he expected his system to correct itself. No reservation, no payment, no name, nothing. The air felt suddenly cold. Too cold. Finally I found my voice. I heard people in that room, I whispered. To people, he swallowed. 311 hasn't been cleaned in days. Housekeeping said it was empty, but the door. He nodded. Yeah, I know. We both turned toward the elevator. Still open, still waiting. The metal doors reflected the empty lobby behind us. 2 people, 1 counter, and absolutely no sign of who or what had been in room 311 all night. The receptionist didn't say anything else. And for a moment neither did I. The lobby felt heavier than before. Like all the air had shifted, like something unseen had just slipped out of the elevator and into the walls. Maybe housekeeping made a mistake, he finally muttered. But the sentence collapsed halfway through. He didn't believe it. Neither did I. I glanced back at the elevator again. The chrome panel reflected the 2 of us, but for a split second. It looked like there was a third shape behind me. Tall, still, indistinct. When I blinked, it was gone. I told myself it was just the lighting. Just exhaustion, just a long night in a cheap hotel. But the instinctive tightening in my stomach didn't agree. Can you show me the record for the room? I asked. My voice cracked, like I already expected the answer before it came. He hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly toward me. There it was, room 310 occupied. Room 312 me, room 311 vacant. And under the last checkout column, 3 days ago. No check-in after that. No key taken. No entry logs, nothing. I felt my fingers go cold. What about the noise? I asked, forcing the words through a dry throat. And the suitcase, he pressed his lips together. I don't know, he said. I'll check the in-hall cameras. He tapped a few keys, then stopped, then blinked. Hard. What? I asked. What are you seeing? But he didn't answer. He turned the monitor toward himself fully, shoulders tightening. The glow from the screen lit his face in a sickly blue. Something on it made his eyes widen, not in fear, in disbelief. I stepped closer. Show me, he swallowed. It's probably nothing, maybe a glitch. He clicked again, paused. Then exhaled through his teeth. Finally he rotated the screen toward me. The hallway feed was on the display. Grainy, quiet, timestamp 3:12 a.m. My floor, The camera angle showed the doors: 309, 310, 311, 312. At first, nothing, just stillness. Then I saw my door open. Me stepping out, barefoot, confused, half asleep. I remembered going to check the hallway after hearing something. The camera showed me looking around, rubbing my eyes, lingering by 311 for a few seconds, then walking back inside. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach drop. Because right after I closed my door, the camera showed room 311's door opening by itself, no hand, no person. Just the door swinging slowly inward, like someone was standing there holding it open. But the frame showed absolutely nothing. Then a second later, the suitcase slid out, not carried, not wheeled, just slid, smoothly. Like invisible hands were guiding it across the carpet. I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck. We watched in silence as the suitcase stopped exactly where I'd found it in the morning. Upright, centered, waiting. Then the door to room 311 closed, softly, deliberately. The receptionist mumbled, "No one's in there. The logs don't show the door opening at all." His voice thinned. "I shouldn't even be showing you this." I couldn't look away. The logic part of my brain scrambled. Maybe a glitch. Maybe corrupted footage. Maybe someone slipped by too fast. Maybe. Then the timestamp rolled forward to 6:47 a.m. The moment the elevator had dinged in the lobby, the feed jumped to the first floor camera. And there it was, the same suitcase, standing inside the elevator, alone. As the doors opened, then, for one frame, only one, a shadow passed behind it, not a human shape. More like a smear, a blur, like someone walking through fog. The receptionist slammed the laptop shut. "That's enough," he whispered. My pulse hammered against my ribs. I backed away from the desk. "Is there anything I should be worried about?" I managed to ask. He didn't answer for a moment. Not until I started walking toward the exit. Then he said quietly, so quietly I almost thought I imagined it, 311 wasn't always empty. I stopped, turned. He looked pale, exhausted, like someone who had kept too many things to himself. A man, stayed there before, long-term guest, business traveler. He never checked out. I waited. He died in that room, the receptionist said. 3 nights ago. My mouth went dry. How? The receptionist shook his head. They don't tell us that. Only that the room should remain vacant until the investigation is over. I stared at him. The hallway screen was still dark behind the counter. And upstairs, room 311's door was open again. A shiver ran through me. Not fear, not exactly, something colder. Something like understanding. I didn't go back upstairs. I packed my things, checked out, and walked out into the morning light with a stiffness in my chest that didn't loosen for hours. But as I crossed the parking lot, something stopped me. In the far corner, near the dumpsters, propped against the concrete wall, was the same black suitcase. As if someone had carried it there, or dragged it, or left it for me to see one last time. The zipper was open now, barely, just enough for me to know it wasn't empty anymore. Inside was something blue, fabric. Folded carefully, deliberately, a shirt. A man's shirt, still damp, and on the collar, written in black marker, a name, not mine, not anyone I recognized, a name belonging to someone who had never checked out of room 311. I approached the suitcase slowly, my steps crunching over gravel in a way that felt too loud for the empty parking lot. There was no wind, no traffic, no people. Just the early morning stillness that makes every sound feel like it belongs to someone else. The shirt inside the suitcase was neatly folded, so carefully that it seemed impossible someone had done it in a hurry. I crouched down, hesitating before touching it. My fingers hovered above the fabric. It was damp, but not from rain. More like from a room where the air never fully dries. Finally, I picked up the collar to read the name again. Ethan Ward. Simple, unfamiliar. And yet, I felt something tighten inside my chest when I read it. Like the echo of a name someone had whispered hours earlier through the wall, but I had heard 2 voices. Not 1, 2. Where was the second? Before I could think it through, a voice cut through the stillness. "Excuse me." I spun around so fast my knee hit the suitcase. A woman in a hotel uniform was walking toward me, pushing a cleaning cart across the concrete. She looked frustrated, out of breath, like she'd been looking for someone. "You're not supposed to be back here," she said, adjusting her name tag, Laura. Her tone wasn't aggressive, just tired, a little uneasy. I stepped aside. "I just saw this. Someone left it here." She sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Oh God. Not again, not again." She knelt beside the suitcase without touching it, just inspecting it like someone who had dealt with it before. "You've seen this suitcase before?" I asked. She hesitated, looked at the hotel, then back at me. "The police took his things 2 nights ago," she said quietly. "The guest from room 311, everything he had with him. I watched them load it into the van." My stomach dropped. "So this isn't his?" "I don't know whose it is," she whispered. "Sometimes things show up here. Left in hallways, by the stairs, outside doors." Her voice cracked a little. "And we never know who brings them." I stared at the name on the shirt, Ethan Ward. "Do you know that name?" I asked. She shook her head. "That wasn't the name of the man who died." A chill ran down my spine. "So who is he?" Laura looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not panic, not hysteria. Just the quiet, exhausted fear of someone who has seen too much and understood too little. "We get a lot of travelers here," she said softly. "People passing through. People who want to disappear. People no one comes looking for." She stood up. "You should go. This hotel. It's not a place to stay when you start noticing things." I didn't argue. I didn't ask more questions. Somehow, I knew she'd told me the truth, or at least the part of it she felt safe admitting. I backed away from the suitcase. She didn't touch it. Neither did I. As I walked toward my car, she called out, "If anyone asks, you didn't see me here." I nodded. Got in the car. Started the engine. My hands were shaking. On my way out of the lot, I checked the rearview mirror. Just once, briefly, to see if the suitcase was still there. It wasn't. Not the shirt, not the case. Not even a wet mark on the pavement. Just an empty corner of concrete. And the faint hum of the hotel's neon sign. I drove away from the hotel faster than I meant to. One hand tied on the wheel, the other trembling in my lap. The road out of the airport district was wide and empty. A straight gray ribbon stretching toward nothing in particular. But no matter how far I got, I kept checking the mirrors. Not because I expected to see a car following me, but because some part of me felt like the suitcase might appear again. In the road, in another parking lot, in the back seat. I told myself it was ridiculous. That I was tired, rattled, influenced by a night of thin walls and strange sounds. But fear has its own logic. And mine whispered that I hadn't seen the last of that name, Ethan Ward. I reached the airport an hour early, too early. I walked through the glass doors, feeling the weight of the building's bright sterility wrap around me. Airports are comforting in a way, always awake, always lit, always filled with people who are going somewhere else. But this morning, the crowds felt distant. Like I was behind glass watching them live a normal day. While waiting for my flight, I opened my phone out of habit. No notifications, no messages, just the blank search bar staring back at me. I hesitated, then typed, "Ethan Ward missing." Enter. The results loaded. Dozens of them. Different faces. Different lives. A student from Ohio. A hiker from Canada. A businessman from Chicago. All missing. All named Ethan Ward, none recent. But one headline made my breath stop. American traveler disappears after checking into international airport hotel. The article was from 4 years ago. Different city, different hotel, but the description. A man traveling alone, checked in late. Room on the 3rd floor. Staff found his belongings neatly packed in the hallway the next morning. He never boarded his flight, never returned, never found. I clicked the photo, my heart dropped. It was the same shirt, the blue one from the suitcase. Same pocket stitching, same collar. This wasn't just a coincidence. Couldn't be. I zoomed in, my fingers trembled. There, on the collar, faint but visible, the same black marker. The same name, Ethan Ward. My throat went dry. I closed the tab quickly, as if someone were watching. As if opening the page had somehow invited something closer. I moved to my boarding gate early, hoping that being around people would quiet the unease twisting in my stomach. But the moment I sat down, an airport announcement crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 7A to London. Passenger, Ethan Ward. Please proceed to Gate 14. My blood turned to ice. Someone behind me muttered. People really shouldn't fall asleep in these terminals. I turned slowly. A man in a gray hoodie was scrolling through his phone, not looking up. He clearly hadn't noticed anything strange about the name. I checked the screen above the desk. There it was. Passenger name, Ward, Ethan. Listed under late arrivals. I stared at it so long that the letters began to blur. But it was real. Undeniably real. The gate agent picked up the intercom again. Her voice tired, bored, routine. Passenger Ethan Ward, last call. But no one came. No one walked toward the gate. No one waved or ran or apologized. The agent marked the name no show in her system. And closed the flight. I watched the plane taxi away. With a feeling I couldn't name. Not dread, not fear, something heavier, colder. Like the universe had exhaled right in my ear. My own boarding call came an hour later. I walked toward the jet bridge with legs that didn't feel like mine. People chattered around me. Dragging suitcases, checking passports. Living their normal, linear lives. But halfway down the jet bridge, I felt something brush past my arm, gentle, barely noticeable. Like the sleeve of someone walking too close. I turned quickly. Nothing. Just passengers moving forward, heads down. Focused on their seats and overhead bins. But on the floor, right near my shoe, lay a small scrap of fabric. Blue. The same shade as the shirt. I froze. Someone behind me grunted, "Move, please." I bent down, picked up the fabric, but the moment my fingers touched it, a memory, one that wasn't mine, flashed across my mind. A hotel hallway, a door closing. A zipper opening, a voice saying please. I dropped the fabric like it burned. It fluttered once. Then slid toward the wall of the jet bridge, as if pulled by a breeze that didn't exist. I stepped onto the plane, trying to swallow the panic hardening in my throat. My boarding pass said 1 for B. But when I reached row 14, only one other person sat there. A middle-aged woman reading a book. 1 for B was empty. I slid into my seat, exhaling shakily. The flight attendant passed by, smiling. "Full flight today," she said. "Really?" I asked. "There's no one in 1 for C." She checked her list. "Oh, that seat's taken." "They checked in earlier." I nodded. Maybe they were in the restroom, or struggling with overhead baggage. But then I saw her move her pen, drawing a line through the name for 14C. The name she crossed out was Ward, Ethan. The plane took off into a pale, washed-out sky. And for the first 20 minutes, I kept my eyes on the seat beside me. 1 for C, empty, but marked as occupied. Taken by someone who wasn't there. No one came. No one ever sat down. But the seatbelt sign above it stayed lit for almost an hour longer than the others, as if someone had buckled it. As if the system still sensed a passenger in the seat that everyone else couldn't see. I tried to distract myself, watched the safety demonstration. Pretended to read the in-flight magazine. Sipped water even though my mouth was too dry. But the truth pressed on me like cabin air in turbulence. Something had followed me. Not a person, not a ghost, just a name, a trace. A leftover of something unresolved in a room that shouldn't have had anyone in it. Yet all of it had one chilling detail in common. I hadn't just heard him. I'd felt him. When the plane touched down, I exhaled so deeply it felt like my lungs deflated from months of tension. Not hours. People stood up immediately. Yanking down suitcases, stretching stiff legs. Talking about taxes and meetings and family. I stayed seated. I needed, to be the last person off the plane. The idea of turning my back on that empty seat felt wrong, disrespectful, dangerous, even. When the hour was finally clear, I stood up slowly. Looked at 14C one last time. The seatbelt was buckled. I hadn't touched it. No one had touched it. But the belt was locked in place, tied across the cushion. As if someone had been sitting there the whole flight, and stood up only a moment ago. My breath stuck in my chest. I unlatched the belt gently, half expecting it to snap back on its own. It didn't. For a moment. Just a moment. I whispered the name quietly into the cabin air. Ethan. Nothing answered. Nothing shifted, but something in me settled. Downstairs, I stood near the carousel, pretending not to look at the belt as it circulated under harsh airport lights. Suitcases clattered down the chute, bright colors, broken handles, oversized backpacks. Normal things belonging to normal travelers. My bag emerged. I reached for it, but froze. Behind it, sliding out softly, quietly, like a memory surfacing from sleep, was the black suitcase, the same one. I knew it even before I saw the faint scuff near the wheel, before I saw the zipper pull slightly bent. My hand instinctively tightened on my own bag handle. But then something happened I didn't expect. A man, tall, dark hair, traveler's jacket, stepped forward, picked up the black suitcase with one hand, rolled it away, as if it belonged to him, as if it had always belonged to him. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, just walked toward the sliding airport doors, the suitcase wheels gliding behind him in a straight, perfect line. I stood frozen. Not scared, not relieved, just aware. Aware that maybe the suitcase had never been meant for me. Maybe I had just been in its way. Its path crossing mine by accident, by timing, by the strange, intersecting geometry of travelers moving through temporary spaces. And maybe Ethan Ward wasn't a ghost, wasn't a mystery, wasn't a warning. Maybe he was just someone the road hadn't finished with yet. At the exit, I saw the man again, just before he disappeared into the crowd. He paused for a heartbeat, glanced over his shoulder, and met my eyes, not threatening, not pleading, just present, fully present. Like someone who knew I'd been part of something I couldn't define, and maybe shouldn't try to. Then he nodded once, a quiet, almost grateful gesture, and walked out into the afternoon light. The automatic doors closing softly behind him, as if sealing the story with him. I never saw him again, never heard the name again, never stayed in a hotel with thin walls again, but sometimes in airports, when a suitcase rolls too smoothly across the floor, I catch myself looking for a name on the collar of a blue shirt. And every time I hear a muffled voice through a hotel wall, I remember, not every story that brushes past your life is meant to be understood. Some are just meant to pass through.